Do you ever feel like there are so many health and wellness products out there that you're left feeling totally overwhelmed? You wish you could just skip the trial and error and just know exactly what will work for you. Well, I've partnered with an amazing new service that can help you do just that. It's called Wild Health, and it's a precision medicine service. They combine an in-depth genetic analysis with extensive blood work and a lifestyle assessment to provide you with a fully comprehensive picture of your health. It's like you've never seen it before. You'll receive a 50-plus page personalized health report covering everything from your optimal diet, exercise, supplement routine, to your risk of chronic disease and prevention strategies. You also get paired with a dedicated doctor and health coach who will help you understand and apply the biggest opportunities for maximizing your health. Your team might recommend a mindfulness plan or hot-cold therapy instead of going straight to prescriptions. It's truly a different approach to health, driven not only by your data, but your lifestyle. Your biology is unique, and it's time that your healthcare caught up with it. Get started with Wild Health and enjoy 20% off with code DrFit20 at wildhealth.com. That's DRFIT20 at wildhealth.com for 20% off. Welcome to the Fit and Fabulous podcast with Dr. Jaime Seaman. Hey everybody, it's Dr. Jaime and welcome back to the Fit and Fabulous podcast. I'm super excited that you're here with us today. And thanks for everybody that has listened to all our previous episodes and downloaded and liked and left your questions. We always value your feedback. So on today's podcast, I want to welcome you all and introduce you to Eric Reynolds. He is a retired wounded cop. He is the son of a female homicide sergeant from Miami. And in 2012, he was shot. And I can't wait for him to tell that story for all of us. He suffered from heart disease, PTSD. He was just metabolically sick. He then went on to lose 75 pounds through being a keto carnivore, became a licensed sports nutritionist and personal trainer in 2020 with a focus on first responders' health. He's helped thousands of first responders with health and PTSD, and he now is a full-time RV family. And for those on YouTube, you can see literally he's literally in an RV park right now. And he runs a retreat program called Cops and Campers. And I can't wait to talk about that too. So Eric, welcome to the Fit and Fabulous podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here. I'll tell you that.
Well, I have a soft spot for law enforcement as Ben was 15 years in law enforcement and a police sergeant. So thank you for your contribution to your community and to the world. But it sounds like you grew up maybe in a law enforcement family. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, my mom was a typical, young woman in the 70s, trying to go to college, and my dad was in the Air Force, and they had a weekend up there at Florida State. And next thing you know, she became a military wife and had to drop out of school. And eventually things didn't work out with them. And about 4 years old, I think she went on a blind date with a fireman, and he goes, "Hey, the county is hiring police officers." And she was like, "What? Police officer?" She never imagined it. And she applied for the benefits, and she ended up becoming a police officer down in Miami in 1975. I mean, way back, she's a pioneer in that profession.
Yeah, I can't imagine there was a ton of women back then. I mean, did she ever talk about that? Like, how many other females were there in the police force?
Yeah, there's some crazy stories she shared. I mean, there's a lot of sexism and, hey, toots, what's going on today's type of mentality back then, and back then they thought law enforcement had to be big and strong and tough type of thing. But, I learned throughout my career, having a good head on your shoulders and be able to communicate was much more effective over a career than just trying to beat somebody over the head. And she proved it. I mean, she became a homicide sergeant. She's been in some documentaries. There's actually a movie coming out or a series on Netflix where she's one of the characters on the show. So there's an actress playing her on the show.
Wow.
Yeah, it's called Zelda. Sofia Vergara is playing the Black Widow, who's the Colombian drug cartel leader that used to execute a lot of her husbands. That's why she was called Black Widow. So
wow,
it should be pretty cool to see my mom's character on the show. And there's even a little Eric guy on the show that I don't have any influence on his part, so hopefully he's a carnivore, not some never mind, I don't want to go there. Soy boy, I guess I was going to say it anyway. So
yeah, that's so cool. I know Ben would love, we don't watch a ton of TV. We dropped cable a number of years ago, but we've got we've got Netflix and yeah, you know,
It's the same producers that did the Narcos series, so it should be pretty intense. So I mean, we're looking forward to it. My mom gets a call from Hollywood one day saying, "Hey, we saw your story in a book. We want to talk to you." And then they just wrote down everything. So it goes back to her being a tough cop, you know, a tough mom on me because she had to. And then quite a few times, if I was late for practice or something, there'd be a marked police car that would pick me up and take me to practice because she was, you know, out there solving crimes. So it was a different way of growing up, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, tell us what inspired you then to go into law enforcement.
Well, I always was involved in catching stuff going down. I'd pull into a parking lot and there's loss prevention chasing somebody, you know, and I'd help them out. And I ended up after college applying for like a store like Macy's, doing loss prevention. Eventually got my own store, moved up the ranks a little bit. And then the department in Boynton Beach, where I ended up being employed, they kept asking me, "Hey man, you keep tackling and fighting with all these shoplifters. Why don't you come join us? You get a Batman belt, you get a gun, you get pepper spray and all kinds of stuff and a pension." I was like, yeah, I'm about 30 years old. I need to start thinking about stuff like that. And I applied and eventually got the job.
So then tell us, you know, in your career, you had obviously a very scary situation that happened, probably not the first, but if you're willing to share any part of that story, I know our listeners would love to hear it.
Yeah, I tend to break down at different parts in it because it was a very traumatic event, but it was a typical work shift. You know, I'd done a lot of specialty units, a lot of different things within my career, and I was kind of contemplating getting promoted or, you know, doing like a field training officer position where you help the young guys, teach them the ropes, kind of being a mentor. So I was back on road patrol after, and it was a regular call that you get, like a bolo for a bank robber that was in another city. We get them all the time, and you know, you always pay attention to the make and model and kind of the direction they're going. And sure enough, a car matching description came through our city. I picked it up. You know, there was a couple of tense moments where he stopped in the middle of the road and I didn't light him up, like try to pull him over. I was just kind of doing an investigatory tour. You kind of investigate, following him, seeing what's up with him, calling it out. And he stops in the middle of the road and we wait there a few seconds. And then looking back, I would have got ambushed if I got out of my car at that point, but I didn't realize it till later. And he finally takes off. We get a little car chase. And after about a mile and a half, he finally crashes. And he crashed kind of suddenly. So we rolled up on him a little bit, not tactically safe. And I got out of my car expecting him to run. And then all of a sudden I saw the ground and I saw the muzzle flash coming out of his door. So he couldn't get his door open. All he did was reach out and just start, you know. So I was out moving, you know, it's like the Wild West, like you see on TV, right? I'm dancing and I keep moving to the left and I'm firing back, you know, suppression fire. I'm just like, get away from me, you know, just trying to buy myself a few seconds. And Austin Monroe, another officer that had pulled up with me, he had exchanged gunfire with the suspect. And eventually we got next to each other. Bad guys trying to clear it around. We approached the car and we put, I don't know, a bunch of rounds into the bad guy at the point. And he ended up dying at the scene. They pulled us back, and then I realized I got shot through my left foot, and they also took a graze off my right shin. And yeah, it was still surreal at that moment. You know, your ears are like, wow, you know, and very intense moment, you know, looking back, especially. I don't know if you want me to keep going because there's all kinds of.
Well, then, you know, how people develop PTSD is you have such an adrenaline dump that literally like imprints it into your, you know, like your hippocampus and like into your brain. And I'm sure even just telling the story, like you can smell the smells and you can like hear, you know, like the sounds and things. My husband, talked about when I invited him on the podcast and
awesome.
He had a situation a number of years ago that it was like one of those near misses, like, right, you don't even know how many you have, but somebody tried to pull a gun out and shoot him at close range and the gun got caught in the guy's waist belt. And like had it not gotten caught, like what would have happened, you know? And so we're really thankful, Eric, that you made it through that because now you're changing lives. But tell us a little bit. So you go through this horrible traumatic event. Like, what was your health like at the time? Were you healthy back then, or like, how did you end up, you know, with all these other health problems?
Well, I was Mr. November of 2008, right, for our police calendar, but I wasn't all that. It was just more of a charity thing, and some of us put tight shirts on, and I wasn't all that jacked up. But I was probably at that point about 220 pounds. I'd always played football, so I always lifted to be kind of bulky. That's just how I lifted, to keep guys off my gun and in a fight. That's how I kind of thought, so I was always the burly, kind of heavy set, barely, I look like kind of like a bear, like a lot of cops look, right? And the time of the shooting, about the same. And then, I just had a 5-month-old son. He was 5 months around the time I got shot. So I was adjusting to fatherhood, and everything's a little different. You're eating different, your time and sleep management's different. Everything's affected, when you get this little guy in your world. So I was at home for 3 months because my foot had to heal. I had to go through physical therapy and all, a lot of nerve damage and stuff like that. I didn't know if I was going to be able to feel my foot completely. There was a lot of concern, but I spent every day with him, man. It was therapeutic, right? So when it got time to go back to work, it came back. Going back out there. And then every call was a lot more serious than it used to be, and that plays on you through a whole shift, through a whole week, through a whole month, through a whole 6 months. And I started gaining weight. I started drinking more to kind of calm my central nervous system down. I mean, I didn't realize it then what was going on, but, hypervigilance and just everything I was trying to like circle the wagons, keep my family at home. I didn't let my wife go anywhere. I'll go to the store. You stay home with the kids, or it was just a whole nother me at that point. And as that stress increased, my weight increased, and then when my buddies died of a heart attack, he had stents put in a couple years before, and that was very concerning when he passed away. And I started looking at myself, because he was in better shape than I was. He was a canine guy, man. He could outrun all of us. Well, those guys, you always hear about, the guy ran marathons or whatever, best shape, And that scared me. And then, I met a guy playing basketball, and he started talking to me about Ketogenic. And I thought keto was some karate moves or something. I didn't know anything about it, right? Just like a lot of us, they don't really share that information with us. So, and I was diagnosed with heart disease. They wanted to put stents in me. I had one of those CAC scores come back around almost 1,500.
Wow.
And my wife man, she would have gone and become a naturopathic doctor. She's always healed the body with, spices and plants and all kinds of natural remedies. And she's a hard charger. She went natural childbirth for all 3 of our kids, breastfed them for 3 years. She's read, and she knows her stuff, even though she may not have the diploma on the wall. You know what I'm saying? You probably know tons of people like that. And she's an expert. And she kept talking to me, don't do the statins. There's got to be other ways. And keto was a blessing. It showed up out of nowhere at the perfect time, because I was teetering. I went through opiate crisis with the doctors in South Florida. We arrested doctors for, writing scripts for profit, like all that. I've seen it. So I'm not a big pharma believer. I believe in Western medicine on some level. So it's just, I was with her on that side of it. She's like, don't be so quick to just jump into the pills or, get some of that stuff. And that opened my eyes. I started reading, becoming more self-aware of what I'm doing,
So this guy on the basketball court tells you about keto, and you didn't know, did you just have no clue what that even was?
Well, he was a college athlete at one time. He put on 50 pounds, and that's how I met him. I knew him as the 50-pound guy on the basketball court, right? And all of a sudden he lost all this weight, and he started getting high up on the rim, grabbing the rim and stuff. And he's about my height. And I'm like, man, I haven't grabbed the rim since 10th grade, because that's when I started getting a lot more body fat put on it when I look back in my days. And he was like, yeah, man, ever since I lost the weight, I'm quicker. Man, I can't tell you about my brain. It's about fat for fuel. I was like, fat for fuel? Because I came from fat is bad, just like everyone.
That makes you fat.
So I read about it. He sent me the link to ketogenic.com, not to give them anything, but that was the first thing I ever typed in. And I read up on it, and I was like, that's interesting. And I started trying some of the recipes. And I just committed to it. I got the little app, my macro app, or your macros, and let's look at the boxes. Let's really understand this. And instant success right off the bat. Like within a month, I was down 20 pounds. Over 6 months, I was down 50, like a lot of people. And then your body plateaus, you start to tweak with stuff. And then I kind of stopped at about 204, 205 pounds until I did Carnivore. And I retired at the same time. So those combinations of Carnivore and no job stress,
no stress. Yeah. Tell me, did you feel a difference? Like, why the transition to Carnivore? Like, if you were feeling so good, or like, did you feel a difference transition? I mean, what was your ketogenic, I guess, answer for me that first, maybe, like, what was your ketogenic diet like when you first started?
I got like what do they call them? The fathead pizzas. I made one of them. And I had a couple of slices before my kid's T-ball game because I started fasting. You know, I tried to do the 16-hour fast, and it worked into the schedule. And I wasn't hungry for like a lot. Like it's like 1 o'clock. It had been like 4 hours. I was like, wow, all right, you know. And then I had something else, and I wasn't hungry the rest of the day. You know, and understanding that, you know, I didn't go through the keto flu as they call it. I call it the carb flu or the sugar flu. You know, I just wasn't getting the supplements I needed, like the magnesium and my, you know, obviously my salt. And so I got some of those mineral drops I started adding to my water, and I felt a lot better. And then it was home free, you know, and I would cook on Sundays, you know, if football's going on, I'm baking 2 dishes for the week that I can take with me. You know, meal prep became big. I really committed to it, you know, and it turned out to be successful. And I started, you know, you lose 60 or 50 pounds at a job where you only have 180 cops around, that people start to notice. You know,
Yeah. Did people start asking questions?
Oh man, like crazy. You know, they're like, man, what happened to you? Where's the rest of you? You know, all these jokes, you know. And one guy just kept calling me Keto. He's like, hey, Keto, man, how'd you lose the weight, man? You know, and it blended right into 5-0, you know, Hawaii 5-0. We get called 5-0 in the hood and stuff like that. It was just a natural progression. I had a little group text. Hey guys, stay away from like Hellman's mayonnaise. It's got soy and all this stuff in it. Canola oil, right? And they're like, man, that other one you recommend is like $10. I go, you're talking about your health. You know, I'd go back and forth with them and stuff. And then I started the Facebook group and page and just started trying to build the audience, and not just first responders, but it could be a sibling of one, a daughter, or, you know, a father, or whoever's just in the circle, you know. And it's doing pretty good. You know, I got a lot of people that are looking for help. They talk to me off on the side. And then with this camping endeavor we've taken on, I meet a lot of retired military, firemen, police officers that I can tell they need help. You know, they just don't know what to do, you know.
My husband used to tell stories all the time going to the police station, and people would look at what he was eating and they're like, wait, what? Like it's crazy. Yeah. And then he's like, and then they get out their lunchbox and they've got like Doritos and a Mountain Dew. I mean, he would just tell me the junk that these police officers were eating. Right. And they're supposed to be like on top of their game and going into these difficult situations. And like, this is what they're feeling with. It's like, so tell us about.
I was going to say, I never finished answering about how Carnivore happened. When I started, I ended up, I followed like Dr. Saladino. I saw him with my wife's a big Mercola guy. So we were actually going to go to, I think, White Oak's
White Oak pastures.
Yeah, we were going to go there when they were speaking. It was like April 2020 before COVID hit. We had our dates. We're going to go. My guy, first year guy, this would be awesome, you know, and got canceled. But ever since then, I read his book and I started following other doctors, you know, Sean Baker and then some of these other guys. It just opened my eyes, and I was just like, wow, let me try this. It really makes sense. I always ate vegetables out of guilt. Not gonna lie. It just felt like I had to do it. I would take pills so I wouldn't have to eat the vegetables, because I don't know, I think subconsciously, you know, with my 2 boys, they eat very organically and clean. Everything's like grass fed, and, you know, we try to control as much as we can. We can't control everything, of course. And I've seen it, how it affects them, you know, and on a day-to-day basis. And I realized that was their body telling they don't like broccoli, so we don't have broccoli. My body told me that for 50 years. I never listened to it, you know.
That's so funny. That's so funny.
Yeah, that's how I got on the carnivore. It was that book, you know, Carnivore Code, that did it. And I was like, wow, I'm going to try this out.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So now life in an RV, tell us what it was like to make that jump. So did you guys just like sell your house, or do you still have a home base somewhere?
It's slow indoctrination, I call it. My wife started looking at these tiny house shows, right? Oh, this is all cute. Look.
Oh my God. My husband is going to die. We're like obsessed with tiny homes right now.
And I'm not gonna lie, they were cool. But when I was 245 pounds and I would get, you know, red face, tying my shoes, bending over, the thought of crawling around a little tiny house like that just caused me nightmares, and hitting my head and then PTSD, you know, banging my head against the wall. And then it was storage tank, you know, containers in the woods that you could stack them. And I'm like, oh my God, this lady. And then it was treehouse shows. I'm like, all right, what do I got to do? Let's try something out. And then in December 2019, you know, I got that email from 23andMe, and I found a cop brother that was also a cop in Florida, 2 hours away. We never knew about, my older brother now. And he'd been RVing for 10 years. So she's looking at me like that's a sign, right? And I was like, all right. So we rented a trailer.
This is a full brother or a half brother?
A half brother. My dad had him in 1968, never knew it.
And he was a police officer.
Turns out he got adopted by a military family, and somehow we found each other. It was cool. We ended up on Fox and Friends in the morning. We got an interview with our nice civvies, nice Class A's on and stuff. And anyways, he'd already been camping, so we camped with him. Here I am camping with my new big brother I never knew about, and we're at St. Augustine Beach in Florida, and you could walk right out to the boardwalk, right to the beach, oceans just, and I was like, man, I think I could do this. Every day is a new spot when you open your door. Same bed, same kitchen, same everything. Your stuff's where you put it, and you just take it around with you. So we sold our house. We bought the truck and trailer right before prices got crazy. And we've been full-timing now for almost 2.5 years. Homeschooling, we pulled them out in 2018 before anything. Like I said, the crystal ball is helping us along the way. Something is guiding us to this path because we pull our kid out of school, I retire, and then COVID hits and everyone's freaking out in the world. And we're living on campsites like this where we don't even realize what's going on out there. My kids never felt it,
So how old are your kids now?
They're 10 and 6. And they started when we were they were 8 and 4. So my 4-year-old now is going to be 7. He pretty much, this is his whole life. This is all he knows. It's awesome. I mean, we saw 5 Great Lakes last summer. We touched it. We swam in it, tasted it. We got rocks, like all 5. It was tremendous. I mean, I'm a Miami kid. All I saw was the Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico. And to see those Great Lakes was just, wow, and we've been all over this Northeast, and it's just been, I can't believe this is what I'm doing. We're driving down the roads and we're seeing the mountains and stuff. I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this. It's incredible.
And I was just about to ask, like, how far you've driven. Like, are there goals to see like most of the United States? Do you kind of stay in one area? Like, how do you decide where you go next?
Well, originally we want to do Maine and then kind of cut around the different areas. But in 2020, everything kind of got shut down. So we kind of stayed North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida area. I mean, we're from Florida, so it's our home base. And then last year we saw 5 Great Lakes. I got in trouble on a campground for flying my thin blue line flag. And I got suspended from our camping.
Oh my God.
Thousand Trails suspended me for 2 months for being belligerent to their staff, which I kind of was because they were telling me to take down an American flag. I kind of lost it. And now you can definitely see the PTSD if you find that. It's on my social media stuff. You can see me kind of losing it. But 4 different campgrounds in New York, upstate New York, called through social media or whatever and said, hey, come bring your flag, fly it proudly, and you got a week on us. And we ended up staying all over upstate New York. And that's what turned into the whole Cops and Campers retreat kind of group that we started. Not to lead into that, but that's kind of how it started.
Tell us more about that. Yeah, Cops and Campers.
Well, I got notified by Spruce Row in Ithaca, New York, and the guy's like, hey man, that's terrible what happened. We support the blue. Come bring your flag here. And you got the VIP spot on us. So I pull up. It's an awesome spot in front of the whole place. And that weekend they had a charity. It was a police charity for some charity. I can't remember what it was, but there's cops everywhere. And I was just people coming up to me. They were giving me like these challenge coins and all kinds of stuff. And it was such a warm feeling to be around all those guys. And then hearing war stories. And then you can open up in those circles. I did a documentary called Cops and Cabins where they took 8 of us in 2017. I'm really metabolically sick. I'm probably about 5 months away from keto. And you can tell I got the heavy, I'm just inflamed. I can, see it now. And it was a retreat program, 8 of us from different departments in a cabin in Blue Ridge Mountains in Georgia. And they filmed it, did a short film, and just talking. And that was so therapeutic that I started thinking we should do this on campsites because I already meet a ton of cops, a ton of military, and a ton of firemen. Let's start having a retreat program. And eventually I want professionals, like yourself and these other people I can really kind of, because I can tell them blue in the face. They trust me a little bit because I'm a cop, but they're still hung on their old doctors. They're still hung on the old system, a lot of them. Well, I got to take my blood pressure. I got to take my cholesterol meds. I got to not eat red meat. And it's tough to break them out of that mold, but I always tell them, hey man, I'm part of a network of health conscious, and these are warriors, and a lot of them are real doctors. I can see it. You don't have to be just stuck, in that little world. So that's my goal with it, to get us together, get them on board with nutrition, get them off the meds, get them to live longer on their pensions, get them to find a friend or two. We all need it. A lot of us retire and we lose our identity, and we're like, we don't know who we are without that job. That's why a lot of us get back into it. But meanwhile, you got 30 years of trauma in your head. Now you're carrying it over in this next career. And I don't know. That's why we die 12 years faster than the average Joe, you know?
Yeah.
That's my goal. I want to save lives. And I've been given this gift and I help cops all the time. I mean, I see them in donut shops, give them my card. Hey, man, when you're ready, I'm not going to force you now. But I just,
Call me.
yeah, it's just been awesome. And, you know, I've done a couple of low carb USA events and stuff like that and gotten to know and meet different practitioners, some of the heroes like Dr. Barry. I'm like, man, I'm in. I'm in it now. My new gang. It's no longer the police department, even though I'm still part of it, but this is my new gang, you know, and I'm going to try to combine them, you know.
I love it. Okay. So then you went on to become a trainer and get additional training in sports nutrition. So do you do one-on-one coaching, group coaching? Like, how do you connect with these first responders?
A lot of it's one-on-one, you know, and if I'm in that city, like right now we'll be in North Carolina, then Tennessee next week. I do sit downs, you know, we'll go to a diner and have breakfast or something like that. And, you know, we'll eat a regular good ass omelet with bacon and, you know, minus the bread and the potatoes and stuff like that. And yeah, the way I work is I don't need you very long. Once I teach you the right way and the way to eat, and you watch a couple of documentaries like Magic Pill, Fat Fiction, and Fat, and all that, you start really understanding and read a couple of books.
Oh, we have a better one coming called Food Lies.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And that just opens people's eyes, and then they don't really need me. They don't need me anymore. You know what to do. Now it's up to you. If you're driving by Wendy's, if you want to put that poison in your body or that Chick-fil-A that you think is a healthier option, it's on you at that point. I'm not going to be able to ride shotgun with you the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's been successful. Some guys, I find the hardest thing is when families aren't on board with what the guy's trying to do, or the wife or the husband's not on board. That causes a lot of problems sometimes in the house because they've been so set in their ways with the way they've been eating and stuff like that.
Yeah. When you came home and told your wife that you were going to be ketogenic, like, tell me, was she already like way ahead of you and like you were the outlier, or like, what was that transition like? Cause I know there's a lot of people listening that I get the question a lot in families, like my spouse doesn't want to do this, or what do I feed my kids? Talk to us about feeding a family.
Well, her thing was trying to eliminate alcohol all the time, you know, and I was like, man, I need something, you know, I didn't want to pop pills. So I kind of went to like vodka and sparkling water just to freaking chill the demons down and stuff like that. And that helps a lot of other guys. They're like, all right, I could still drink a little bit. I like a little bit. I'll go pounding the whole bottle, but I got to get you somewhere first, get you off of the other stuff. And my wife was she watched a lot of the stuff I was watching too. And through organically, she was like, that makes sense, you know, about her thyroid and, you know, oxalates and stuff like that. And, you know, she was on board. She was ahead of me on not going the pill route or asking my doctor for help to lose weight and stuff like that. She was, you know, and plus her father suffered through it. He ended up dying in surgery, you know, after having some complications. Was it sepsis or something when your intestines are bleeding out?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she was, you know, she was already there. She was way ahead of me. Now I look back, she's just waiting for me to catch up.
So how do you cook for a family in an RV? That's like when I look at these tiny homes, I'm always like, I don't know. I like my giant refrigerator and
We have 2 freezers and we have, I cook about every 2 days. I cook a bunch. I'll cook like 16 burgers, couple ribeyes. They'll do some plantains and sometimes we'll slice up some potatoes or something just to get a little bit of carbs for the kids. And we eat leftovers. You know, they do a lot of like frozen berries and honey and stuff like that. We do bone broth every morning. I do bone broth in my coffee. I'm, you know, being a cop, I still like my coffee in the morning. I know it's not 100% carnivore and all that, but I still have, that's one of my crutches. But I do the bone broth in it with heavy cream, and then boom, you know, I'm gone for like 4 hours. I don't need to get until like 12 or 1 o'clock. I just ride it. I'm, you know, full of energy, and then, you know, that whole fasting state overnight. And man, it's been the best thing for me. You know, I never knew that just letting your body relax from eating would be so healthy, because we were never taught that. You got to feed the body every 6 hours, keep that metabolism going, you know?
yeah. How do you train, exercise, lift weights in these RV parks?
Well, a lot of them are hiking trails, so you can get your cardio in. I do have
Okay.
weights with me. I got bands. I got a portable pull-up bar that I can do a bunch of different exercises with, but I still have a couple of gym memberships. I'll kind of look at campgrounds and say, oh, this one's, 20 minutes away from a gym, and this one might be 5 minutes, and plot it out through those popular gyms, and I'll go there too, but I like Dr. Ben's resistance training that I've been doing. And I can do that easily at the trailer park. My wife can do it. The kids start doing it. Next thing you know, we're all out there, looking like this hippie family, kind of crazy.
You're probably turning heads in the RV park. You can probably just start knocking on doors, handing out your card.
It's pretty cool though. It's been and the stretch in this kind of nature outside, just breathing in. I mean, it's so different than being inside the gym. So half the time I'm like, I'm just gonna stay here and get my lift in there. Plus, when I lost 75 pounds, I went from like 245 to 175, and I got my body fat from like, I think it was 29% down to 15%, which was a lot for me. And I saw my abs for the first time, and I was feeling lighter than I had since 8th grade. That's a long time. I was probably 14 then. And it's like a whole new, I joke with my wife, she's got a new man now, it's a different guy, more vigor, I got more energy. I'm always on the prowl. And she's like, get away from me, that damn carnivore diet,
Yeah. So, obviously you've lost weight and you have, told people how great you feel. Have you had your heart scanned again since you found out you had a high CAC score?
No, I had not gone again. One of the reasons was I didn't like how much radiation I was exposed to with that. And I started looking up how much it was. And then I talked to, what's his name? Dr. Agustin, is that it?
Yeah, the guy that invented the CAC score.
I talked to him in Boca and told him my situation. He thinks that that's just old news and that I'm fine based on the way my life's going, and based, my A1C is still 5.1. Like all my other numbers are good, even though they say according to my testosterone is low, according to the numbers, not dangerously low or anything. But they're always playing with the numbers. They're low on blood pressure, they're low on cholesterol, they're low on testosterone. There's always this, and I don't feel it at all. None of the other, I have no other symptoms from it. So I don't, concern myself too much with it right now.
And I think that back in the day, we didn't think that coronary artery calcium could be reversed, but Ivor Cummins and other people have certainly shown case studies of it. My own mother has had some scans done on her heart recently. And over a period of time with some lifestyle changes, her calcium score went down like 200 points. So, I mean, I think that there is something to be said that, people that come into, keto or carnivore or whatever, they may have pre-existing disease. And certainly there are risks still, that we need to acknowledge. But I think that it's never too late, to start. So talk to us a little bit more, Eric, about the PTSD, because I know there's veterans, there's first responders and people listening that mental health, PTSD is such a huge issue for this community. Can you talk about just the experience with your mental health and transitioning to this lifestyle?
Well, after I got shot, you obviously feel everything's heavier. Anytime an officer gets shot, it could be in another part of the world, you feel it on a whole nother level. We had the privilege of being honored in Washington, D.C. in 2013 as National Officers of the Month for February. We got up there with every other month of that year, these officers. The guys that got in a shootout with the Boston bombers were there. I mean, it was a class of freaking people there, right? And I felt honored to be even amongst them. I mean, here's a small-time cop out of Boynton. But it was traumatic to go too, because we're at the candlelight vigil and you're seeing all the fallen officers' families and stuff like that. And that just, you start to build this survivor's guilt almost in a weird way. Like, why me? I don't know. And it just kind of gets in there. So then I got an evidence job for about 6 years and wrote out my career. But every time I had to put that uniform on, I was in a heightened awareness. It was really affecting my brain and my relationship with my wife and my kids. I was short-tempered. I was just I knew I was going to shoot again. There's no doubt. I just, and that's why I was hiding in evidence for the last 6 years. If I got into another situation again, and I was going to pull the trigger, and then I was scared about the results. When I shoot somebody that's innocent, it was just a crazy call, or was I too slow to shoot? That was another thing. I don't want to get gunned down because I'm second guessing myself. So that all gets in there, and then the worst part was trying to seek help for it.
Mm.
Workers' comp's fine for covering my foot and my leg. That's visible injuries to them. They don't know the day to day, that's the wear and tear that was going on. And I needed to talk to somebody. It's pretty much what I needed to do. I didn't need pills. I didn't need, yoga. I needed to talk to a therapist of some level. And I didn't want a psychiatrist. I wanted a psychologist. So I had to go before workers' comp and battle with them. I think there was 4 lawyers in the room and maybe break down in front of them. Hold on. See?
Yeah. It's emotional for you. It is.
Well, that's why guys don't go get help.
Yeah.
So I finally got the help. They approved it, and it was such a freaking joke. And then, we settled when I retired, just so I didn't have to deal with them and they didn't want to deal with me, but I talk to guys all the time. They were like, no way. I would never even go to a boss. I wouldn't tell nobody, and I'm like, dude, it's a shame, because it really did help me. When I saw Dr. Burnett and I first walked in there, he goes, Eric, you're going to have to learn how to dance with this. It's not going away. You have to manage it, and exercise turned out to be one of the best things in my nutrition, by feeding my brain cholesterol, which went against the agenda, healthy fats, good grass-fed, beef and stuff, organ meats and stuff like that. My brain suddenly, it was the inflammation, everything just started calming down. I'm not saying I don't have issues, I can still get in the red fast, still get frustrated. I work on that, slow is fast. I try to keep myself grounded, that's why being around my kids helped me. I think they saved my life, having kids in my 40s rather than, being a empty nester, no one around. And we've all stole a piece of our soul for that pension, and we all have our demons that we have, and that's why this Cops and Campers, this kind of stories I heard guys hadn't shared before, it was so therapeutic. And even their wives came up like crying, saying thank you, so sorry.
That's so awesome. No, that's okay. It means, it means something to you when, and somebody listening, for those of you that can't tell, Eric is like, he's getting emotional, but it means something. And there's somebody listening that's going to resonate with them. And it resonates with me a lot, being married to somebody in law enforcement and watching them walk out the door every single day and try to, they're supposed to put on this face and put on the uniform and act tough. And, they're not supposed to show weakness and they're not supposed to cry in front of people. And, they do, like, they're humans, like they're humans and they deal with human level problems. And so you're going to touch somebody, Eric, with telling your story. So, okay. No more. We're not going to talk about any sadness.
No, I was gonna say, the experience to be in something like that, and I know other officers or military or anybody that's been through any type of trauma, it was such a primal place to go at that moment of the shooting and making the decision to go ahead and kill another life. I mean, it was just like some barbaric thing that's from our old DNA back when we were, invading countries or defending our countries, and it's not a fun place to go to. It's a very scary place to go because you're almost, not that you're out of control, but you're in a whole new level. And I never tapped into that before. Playing all the sports I did, having all the head injuries from concussions and stuff, this is a whole nother level. And it scares me, that's why I had to get out. I had to get out of the career. Don't be scared to leave money on the table to save your life. That's one of the other things that cops hang on for.
Yeah. Would you let your boys go into law enforcement if they wanted to?
I'm thinking, like,
have you thought about it?
We go out to like Montana or something, they become ranch type cowboys, or maybe work for the forestry. I don't want them doing city cop, going to domestics, unfortunately I loved helping people, but it's a sad case, time after time, they don't call you for the birthday party, they call you because someone showed up at the birthday parties and mess everything up, and weighs on you. I see some of these small-town guys, smaller town cops, and they're awesome. They love their jobs. I'm like, man, it's like Mayberry. That's not where I worked. It wasn't the most violent city, but one of the safest. It wasn't Chicago.
I think that's a testament sometimes to small town living. And I'm sure that's what you're experiencing too, just going from RV park to RV park, that sometimes just, unplugging from the big cities and big machines and can be really therapeutic, even if it's for a short period of time, sometimes for
Well,
people.
we worked on a farm in Pennsylvania for 3 months over the summer. It was a beef farm,
Ah,
and I learned how to slaughter a bull, a pig. I learned how to drive a tractor. It was like the coolest like summer camp thing I could have done as an adult. I mean, it was hard work. Farm work was no joke. I mean, I got some of the best workouts. I didn't need a gym, and so don't forget to go out to your your farmers market, meet some of these farmers and get out there, and they love to show you how it's done and where your food comes from, and sometimes you get a deal on a half hour, quarter cow or something too. So
yeah. Is it hard to find places to shop when you're like, I mean, you must be having to do some serious reconnaissance with like where you're going and
yeah, we always are asked. That's why we go to farmers markets. We,
yeah.
we walk right in and we find out what farmers are what, and they're a close community. Like certain states, my wife loves raw goat milk. She's has problems with pasteurized milk like a lot of people do, and my kids love it. But some states you got to be part of a share. Some states you can't sell it to people, only for animal consumption, but you're walking out with it in your hand anyways. You just got to learn all the damn rules that come along with it. And same with some of the beef farms, where you call ahead. We have the networks that we use, to follow. And if there's two campgrounds and one's close to a beef farm that we like, we're going to that one. That's kind of how it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, Eric, tell people how they can find you, how they could maybe work with you if there's first responders that are listening.
Okay, you can always reach me at KetoFiveO.com. That's my website. You can see some of the before and after. You see a lot of the podcasts that I've done. This one will be on there as soon as it's able to be released. The same with Twitter and Instagram and all that. It's all KetoFiveO, the YouTube, and I had to do TikTok, which I'm not. I left law enforcement not to get into social media, and here I am trying to get into social media. So, but it's been awesome, and you can reach me to those platforms, and also through Cops and Campers. Any cops that like to camp or military people want to be part of these get-togethers. We got one coming next year in June in Ithaca, New York. Our second one, the one we did last year, we're working on the short film that we just completed, and that should be really cool to see how the cops felt being a part of that event. And I'll be able to use that to share it, and hopefully have more of these programs across the country.
That's so awesome. And, I know that the political climate in law enforcement has been, tenuous these last couple of years. So I love giving law enforcement the opportunity to connect with their communities and just for people to realize that these are just real people and there's bad people everywhere. There's bad doctors. And I just can't thank you enough, Eric, for being so brave and courageous and telling your story today. And for your service, your many years of giving back to your community and following in your mom's footsteps, which I think is so badass. That's so awesome. I know she's super proud of you. So, well,
Well,
thank you.
thank you so much, and you're rocking. You're doing awesome things. Like I said, I've been following you and all you nutritional warriors that are out there, really helping a lot of people. And there is a movement coming. We're gonna have to fight because they don't want this movement, to
Yeah.
succeed. But as far as I'm in the fight. I'm on your team. So anything you ever need, reach out to me. I got you, and your husband too. I gotta set him a challenge coin, both of you guys.
Yeah, well, if that RV ever makes its way up to the Midwest, we got a place for you to park it.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks everybody for listening. Did you guys love that last episode of the Fit and Fabulous podcast? Well, of course you did. And I want to keep bringing you the most amazing content from the most incredible people. And you can help me by subscribing to the Dr. Fit and Fabulous channel. You guys know where the button is. Just click it. It's the doctor's orders.